You know the vibes. Welcome back to another episode of the Hoop Genius podcast brought to you by NBA 2K24. Today it's myself, Mo Mutsi, and BJ Armstrong's not here. He's currently on a flight handling some business, but don't worry. I brought another one of my OGs, my good friend, my mentor, CT coach Christopher Thomas. Chris, thank you for joining us today.
I'm here. I'm
Hey,
here
man.
for you, bro. You
eh,
already know.
It's always an honor to have you on the show. If you're a long-time listener, you'll be familiar with CT and the knowledge that he drops from his experience of training basketball players from high school level all the way up to the NBA. And we're going to talk about the NBA playoffs. We're going to talk about game one of the Western Conference Finals. The Minnesota Timberwolves at home lost a close one, 108 to 105 against the Dallas Mavericks. CT, initial reaction and thoughts off the back of this.
They gave it away. They gave it
They
away.
they literally gave it away. There was a
They
turnover. Jaden McDaniels passed the ball to Luka Doncic with about 2 minutes left in a one possession game.
come on, come on, come on, Kyrie, come on, Luca. You need the ball in those moments to close, seal the deal. It's what you get paid for. That's what you built for.
let's
So mm,
let's start from the
tough.
top. Let's start from the top of this game. Kyrie Irving came out on fire through the first quarter,
Uh,
through the first half. Kyrie Irving had
and
24
Anthony
points.
Edwards poked that bear. He
hmm
poked that bear.
Yep. With his comments after game seven against Denver, he said he was looking forward to guarding Kyrie, and Kyrie dropped 24 in 20 minutes in the first half. He said, hey, I'm an NBA champion. Don't forget who I am.
I'm Kyrie. Let's not forget.
That's a fact. And the Dallas Mavericks in this one, they could not hit a three-pointer to save their lives. They had an abysmal shooting night. They ended up finishing the game 6 of 25 from downtown. And when you see teams shoot like that, especially on the road, they don't tend to win those games. But Kyrie Irving kept them within touching distance in the first half. And then throughout the second half, Luka Doncic stepped up. Um, if we're looking at Anthony Edwards, we talk about him poking Kyrie. In this game, he finished with 19 points of 6 of 16 shooting, 5 of 12 from the field, and we didn't see that same defensive intensity. His stat line, he had 11 rebounds, he had 8 assists, but the majority of that work on the boards was done in the first half. We saw him when the third quarter, fourth quarter came around. In the post-game press conference, he said that they were tired, they ran out of energy. And I think about it
Oh,
like this, that game seven win against the Denver Nuggets, either A, they celebrated too hard and they still hung over from that one, or B, the emotional high on the mental side of things, they got a little bit carried away with that and they weren't fully focused and prepared for this one. Or do you just see this as tired legs? What are your thoughts on that?
so I texted you earlier, and I told you it was they've been T Wolves been playing on emotion
Mhm.
all this playoffs, and it's worked out for them. God love them, but that runs out, and at some point you got to be real about your game and game about your real. And now it's time. Now it's conference finals, and the emotions that you can write off on the the fans and the attendance and that hype and the stimulation of music and all that. Now, if you about this business, if you about this life, and at this setting for guys that understand the playoffs, here's where you meet your moment, and it goes past emotions, mentality. You do what you do,
Mhm.
and the T Wolves have proved game one they're not ready for this moment, and
You-
then Kyrie proved, especially in the first half, yeah, I'm gonna show you what I do, who I am, and remind you of that. And then I don't need to do that for us to win this series.
Do you think coming off a seven-game series against the reigning champs, where Anthony Edwards towards the end of that series was guarded in a way that they were throwing two defenders at him, he had to give the ball up early, and now the Mavericks, they weren't double teaming him or really blitzing him when they were in the screen roll. What they did, a friend of the show, Jamal Crawford, said this after the game. They're playing kind of a man and a half defense. So they've got the primary defender on Anthony Edwards, and then the secondary defender isn't fully committing, but he's kind of playing the gaps that Ant likes to pass into or take that 1-2 dribble pull up, and they're taking that away from him. So it's a new coverage. How much of him just getting comfortable in attacking Denver and now having to face a completely different team in the Mavericks does that play into this game one?
I think Ant needs to be him. If you're gonna be so bold and bodacious and confident, no one can stop you. A double team can't stop you from getting the ball back. You got to get off the ball from a double team. But
Yeah, they weren't really double teaming him a lot tonight, though. So do you think it caught him off guard?
Is attack that then do you, bro? Because if they're not sending double where they force you to get off the ball, then you got to be that dude.
Absolutely.
That you say you are.
Well, we saw some flashes from him. He hit a few big threes. There was one that they had a 2-for-1 opportunity in the first half where he hit a long range dagger, and you really thought, he's getting his swagger back. But now Anthony Edwards, if you look at Game 7 and of the previous series in Game 1, he's 28 of 40, and he's only had one basket tonight inside the arc, and he hit 5 threes, one bucket inside the arc, and he didn't get anything going in the paint.
But he's not a 3-point shooter.
Exactly. So
to the 3-point shot as his go-to to negate a double or double on a half a double or whatever scheme defensively versus attack like you did Denver. He did Denver dirty. Mm-hmm. He attacked. He ended up at the rim at will. Do that, bro. No one can stop you except for, whatever his scheme is for game 1 and try to go into game 2. Bro, you got to attack. You got to be a monster. You got to be the monster that you say you are and be aggressive and assertive that you think you can be and want to be for the T-Wolves to have a chance. Because unfortunately, when Luka and Kyrie agree to double team the T-Wolves, it's over.
Mm-hmm. And then you look at the stat sheet, Luka and Kyrie both scored over 30 points. The Timberwolves were led by Jaden McDaniels, who had just 24. Not just 24. That's a great night for him. And in the playoffs, a 7-game series, when a role player steps up like that, Jaden McDaniels was 6 of 9 from 3. Those are the games you have to win in a series because you can't rely on Jaden McDaniels to shoot the lights out like he did tonight. Maybe he will going forwards, but we've seen Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Jaden McDaniels. These guys have been a little bit inconsistent, but I want to just talk to you about the bigs because the difference in this Dallas team compared to the Phoenix Suns and the Denver Nuggets is those two teams didn't have shot blockers. Whereas now the Mavericks, they have a shot blocker on the floor at all times with either Gafford or Lively. And Lively played amazing off the bench in this one. But, they can clog the paint in this series. So obviously that takes away a lot of the drives from Anthony Edwards that you would expect to see. But also for Rudy Gobert, Karl-Anthony Towns, we spoke about this before the show, settling for those threes rather than using his size advantage because although the Mavericks have got the shot blockers, they've only got one of them on the court at a time. The Timberwolves are running with 2 bigs. Yeah. And we saw them getting the 4-5 screen roll with Rudy and Cat playing the 2-man game with each other, which was effective in a couple possessions down the stretch. But how can they counteract that shot blocking presence of the Mavericks?
So let me revert real quick. Jaden McDaniels, 20-point games. His last 3 games of his career have been his last 3 games of his career. Huge. But then to answer your question is, the Timberwolves were built to beat the Nuggets. They don't match up with anybody else in the league, especially the Mavericks. So they're going to have a hard time trying to figure out how to deal with Lively, how to deal with any inside presence that the Dallas Mavericks offer.
And then go ahead. Sorry.
No. It just, they were built for, to beat the Nuggets.
Yeah.
And I feel they mission accomplished, except for the Mavs have the answer for everything else that leads to NBA final. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I've got to give credit here to Luka Doncic on the defensive side of the basketball because we can talk about his 33 points, his assists, his rebounds, but defensively, there were some possessions, and I looked at them and I was like, if he played defense like this for the 82 game regular season, no one could argue against him being MVP. He was moving his feet. He was playing fantastic defense. But we're talking about the big man presence from the Mavericks. Let's flip it. The Minnesota Timberwolves have got Rudy Gobert, the four-time Defensive Player of the Year, who wasn't on an All-NBA team, but that's a whole nother conversation. They've got Karl-Anthony Towns, who played great defense on Jokic, but it was the Mavs who won the points in the paint battle 62-28. How is it possible when a team can't hit any threes, and you saw during the game that they became very hesitant to shoot those threes? Even Luka at one point passed up an open three to drive the ball into the paint. Now, this team can't shoot from three in this game one. They're taking the ball inside. How do you still give up that many points in the paint when you've got a four-time Defense Player of the Year, 7-foot shot blocker in Rudy Gobert?
Because you got to account for you want him to foul out or not. You want to help or not. You want to.
Well, he finished with 3 fouls. He wasn't even close to foul trouble tonight.
And that's the fault of him. Like, you're not aggressive, Rudy Gobert. And Naj and Karl-Anthony Towns, who last series he was allowed to bully, like physically beat up Jokic, and they didn't call any of that. Do that this series. Start with that this series. Don't revert to let's go back to playing basketball. But the explanation is, I just think the Mavs understand the task at hand and take it to these dudes because they really don't want that. They don't want that smoke inside the lane. They don't. Karl-Anthony Towns doesn't like that contact like that. He'd rather shoot threes. Defensively, he stepped up, thankfully, last series. He's not that dude. He's never played defense like that. And then the refs, I feel, gave him freelance to, man, you get chucks and chugs and jacks. Like, that's a foul. But
on the Joker in the last series, yeah.
Yeah, but good for you. But then, Naj, the same. But Rudy Gobert, the same, guarding at the perimeter, which that's not his deal. He's a help side. Secondary defender.
And you saw that the Timberwolves tonight were playing a drop coverage. So when there was a pick and roll by the Mavericks, Rudy Gobert would drop back. Now, when you do that with a player like Luka Doncic or Kyrie Irving, they can now play 2-on-1 to attack Rudy Gobert. So they're either going to go score themselves, and then if he does come across, they've got the lob pass over the top to Lively, to Gafford to be able to finish at the basket. Now, what worked for them in stretches, and this is an adjustment I expect to see from them in game number 2, is when they went to blitz to pick and roll and throw 2 defenders at the ball handler. Now, that works a lot better. But guess what? If you start doing that, these guys are good enough passers that they can give the ball up quickly and they could even go get it back. And even if they do give the ball up, you're playing 4-on-3. So it's going to be tricky for them to figure out a defensive coverage for Luka Doncic. And I don't think anyone can really figure out the defensive coverage for Luka Doncic because Luka is basically like playing against Jokic, but instead of him operating from the inside where Rudy can bother him, he's playing from the outside. And they're playing with 4 guys who will space the floor, even though guys like PJ Washington weren't really hitting a lot of their shots tonight, even though PJ hit a big one down the stretch. They can space the floor and just.
But you got to believe Dallas will get comfy, especially at home, hitting that corner 3, hitting that space out 3. And it's over for Timberwolves, where Timberwolves have good D. They have great D, but they don't have a fix for a Luka who can find the exact open person for a catch and shoot versus a catch and create.
Yep. And Luke himself was 3 of 10 from downtown tonight. Derrick Jones Jr. didn't hit a 3-pointer, and we've seen him have some big games to close out that OKC series. PJ Washington was 2 of 8. Kyrie Irving was 0 from 3. Kyrie Irving with 30 points. Only 6 of them came from the free throw line, and the rest of them was just pure bucket getting. And then off the bench, they got 1 3-pointer from Josh Green, and that was it. They didn't really get much of a contribution off their bench aside from Derek Lively defensively. You can't rely on the Mavericks.
First game blues, bro. First game blues.
And here's the thing as well. Like, you're watching this, and with the reputation the Minnesota Timberwolves have of being the best defense in the NBA, you're thinking, oh, they must be chasing them off the 3-point line. They must be closing out. No, the Mavericks were getting open shots. They just couldn't knock them down.
Yes.
You can't rely on that to happen 4 times in a series. I mean, I'd be shocked if it. I did expect some element of this because PJ Washington is like a 30% career 3-point shooter. He shot 40% in the last series, right? So he's taken a jump, and you can't expect him to maintain a plus 10 percentage points in his 3-point shooting. However, I don't expect him to shoot 2 from 8 again from downtown. You know what I mean? And
but none of them, because they go home and they have these 2 games on the road, which the mentality, the psychosis of playing on the road is way different.
Mm-hmm.
The preparation, you can have the same, pregame meal and preparation, workout and all that. It's not the same when you hear that crowd and when you're in foreign territory. When you're at home, it doesn't matter. You can be off your pregame meal and workout or miss a step on your reps, but you're at home. There's a comfort of being at home. They're not going to miss that many threes. Kyrie has proved that. All right, I was playing second fiddle all prior series. You want me to score? You want me to prove that I'm that guy? All right, wait till I get home. And then Luka, wait till I get home and I get more treatment. Like, he's not getting less treatment, given he's how old. He's getting more treatment, even more treatment, to where they're not going to get worse as this goes out.
And the mentality, the mentality I speak to a lot of players about is when they're playing on the road to open a series, they've got 2 games to steal 1. They've done their job now. They've stolen 1. And now they've got to win 3 out of the next 6. And 3 of those games are going to be at home. So they've got the home court advantage now. They've stolen game 1 on the road. Do you see the Mavericks winning this series now?
I see the Mavericks win the series because the T-Wolves are T-Pups. They're too young. They're young and they're dangerous because they're young. But just like OKC had to bow out, the T-Wolves have hit a level they're not able to conquer.
Well, I mean, Rudy's been around a while. Cat's been around a while. Mike Conley's been around a while.
But I hope Ant and his international experience kicks in to where there's a different level right now in conference finals. Versus first round, versus, talk all that cash, bro. But it gets real right now, and grown men right now, and all NBA players actually earn money right now. So it turns into, hey, bro, Anthony Edwards, love your energy, but if you don't go phenomenal, exceptional, no chance for your team and your organization to move on, because Luka has been bred and groomed and built for these moments.
Luka mentioned his Real Madrid days in his post-game interview, and he's been to the Western Conference Finals before. But Kyrie's a champ.
But Kyrie's a champ. But Kyrie's that dude.
Yeah.
If they didn't have Luka, it would be Kyrie leading the Mavs through this effort.
Yeah. So people often say, the team with the best player will win the playoff series in the end. And Luka Doncic played game 1 better than Anthony Edwards. But for me, the player I'm looking at is Karl Anthony Towns, because of how we spoke about how they're defending Anthony Edwards. Karl Anthony Towns, if you're being guarded by a PJ Washington, right? If you're being guarded by any of these smaller guys and they're putting a big on Gobert or Rudy Gobert, somehow you can score post-ups when you play for France, but you can't do it in the NBA. I don't know what that's about. But one of you 2 guys has to just say, All right, we've gone through a 4-minute stretch here where we've not scored a basket. I'm on the block. Give me the damn ball. Let me go to work and get a bucket because I'm 7 foot. This guy guarding me 6'7".
And he won't agree to that because he's Karl Anthony Towns. And you saw the last possessions of the game, he's jacking threes instead
He only
of,
scored 4 buckets that weren't 3 points tonight.
get me the ball in the post or the high post even. Give him the option to go off the bounce. But, man, get down to the post, bro. No one can guard you. Like, he's frustrating to me because he's so good that he sucks when he just reverts to I can hit a three. Let me take these threes. And you saw what resulted tonight.
And we saw him post up more against Phoenix and against Denver than he did tonight. And
why? Why go away from that?
exactly. But whoever wins this series is going to go on to face either the Boston Celtics or the Indiana Pacers, who played game 1 the other night. And tonight we've got game 2 of the series.
Boo! Boo!
Why are you booing, CT? My boys are up 1-0.
Hey, because I live in Indiana and the Pacers are here, of course, but I feel bad watching that game like everybody else watching that game as a true basketball fan. Like, wow, Pacers, really? You
They
gonna
let
give
that
up
one go.
the
It's the same story though. The experience, the turnovers at the end,
game?
and then the big time players making the big time shots. It's the same
And
script.
you're just not ready for your moment, right?
Tyrese Halliburton
Which,
saw Drew Holiday guarding him and proceeded to dribble the ball out of bounds. Then inbounding the basketball to Pascal Siakam, and Jaylen Brown manages to deflect it. It comes off Siakam's hand, and that
but
ultimately led
I
to
would tell you, like, let me give notice to Jay Brown. He a bad boy,
oh,
except
absolutely.
for defensively, he was doing a lot of jersey grabbing last night.
It's the
That
playoffs.
if Rick Carlisle is going to send a video to the NBA,
100 more clips.
just clip all those jersey grabbings that Jay Brown was doing, and it's like, hey, refs, you could call that or not. Da da da. That being said, Pacers pissed that one off because they made defensive cues that were abnormal. Like, what?
Were they abnormal? Because they were a terrible defensive team throughout the regular season.
No. Abnormally abnormal because agreed. They don't play defense, but then to give Jaylen Brown a corner three when everybody knows you're up, play outside.
Yep.
Let them catch inside.
Because everyone's talking about why
50.
did they not foul, and I'm like, why did he try and go under? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing here, bro? You know where he's going.
But I don't know if that's a coach thing. I don't blame it on the coach. I blame the players. Like, let them hit a two. Let them get two.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a baseline out of bounds 12 action that Brad Stevens has run for the Celtics before to get them a shot from the corner.
Yes.
And it goes down to scan, which is another super nerdy basketball thing. If you're a weird basketball addict like myself, that I just want to say, going back to the Dallas Minnesota game, is there was a play where the Timberwolves were trying to inbound the ball down the stretch with Kyle Anderson inbounding it. And Luka Doncic just ignored him completely. So they were playing 5-on-4 and they couldn't get the ball in. And the Timberwolves had to call another timeout, and that was their last timeout. So down the stretch, when it's a one-possession game, they were unable to call a timeout to advance the basketball and draw something up. That's just another little nerdy thing I noticed, but great basketball IQ from Luka Doncic on that. But back to the Celtics and the Pacers. What do you think of what everyone's saying about Jason Tatum right now? You know, the media are criticizing him. Kendrick Perkins was saying he should have got 50. And I'm looking at it like, well, he scored, 10, 11 points in overtime, finished with 33. They won the game. He did his job. His team won the game. Whether you liked it or not, it was an ugly win, but he got it done.
They're one up in the finals. And fans have to realize, Celtics fans, basketball fans, he's a Midwest kid, meaning he's mild-tempered. He doesn't get riled too high and too low. So when you're looking for him to pop his chest and yah when he hits a three. He's a Midwest-based raised kid, and we don't do that in the Midwest. We just look for the next play. We expect to make the play, and we move on. And the NBA wants to market, the media wants to market the hype of the sensationalism of the moment, and he doesn't give them a moment. Sucks for the media and the NBA.
Well, this goes to my theory. I have a theory, right? That NBA media and a lot of NBA fans, not the fans who listen to this show because they're real basketball fans, but a lot of fans that you see online, they don't actually like basketball. This is just their version of like a superhero comic, right? And
right.
Because if you have a superhero, right, you've got to be that guy. You can't just be, just go about your business, solve crimes or whatever, and just carry on your day. You've got to be, I've got to have a costume. And they want every star player to fit into a certain type of superstar. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, they're not characters, they're individual people.
Right. But I'll tell you, it's game one. You want him to be so excited about a big shot in game one.
Mm-hmm.
That's game 7. That's game 4.
That's a game in the NBA Finals because that's where he's expecting to get back to.
But people got to understand the context of this dude's been in conference finals since his rookie season.
Every year that they've had a healthy squad.
So this ain't it for him. This is like a Boston do or die.
Yep.
You making the championship or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't expect him to glorify anything, Jaylen Brown, any of the Celtics, because they've been in the conference finals for years and haven't stepped up. Get past the conference finals, get into the championship and contend. And then, that means something. When I see emotion from Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown in the championship, you all know that I know they consider this the real.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And here's the thing. When you're looking at game 2, the adjustments that teams can make, obviously both teams have to clear up the turnovers that they made in game 1. But what can you see the Indiana Pacers doing differently to make sure that they win or try and steal game 2 on the road?
They can't do anything differently. They played the perfect game. They hit shots. They actually defended. They had a concept that worked, that they were in competition in the final minutes in crunch time. They just pissed the pot. They pissed on themselves. They lost the game.
Yep.
They're not going to shoot. No one said they would shoot that well against the
Knicks
second
in
half
7.
of the Knicks.
Yep.
They did.
Yep.
No
almost missed 70% from the field.
First half of next series, it was comparable. They were plus 50%. They're shooting well. They need to bank on that, stay with that confidence, but they just need to make the stops, make the plays that they need to make. Stop the dumb turnovers. Pascal Siakam, cutting straight line to the baseline is like, all right, even if you catch that, you're at the baseline in the short corner. What are you going to do? Because you can't, he's not a dribbler.
He's got the spin move. He's got the spin move. If you read the scouting report, you got him figured out. As you saw Jaylen Brown come up with a steal down the stretch.
McConnell and all the guards in that setting. Like, come on. Put your ball handlers in. Like, what are we doing?
And the other thing is the Celtics didn't have a good shooting night in game 1. Especially Al Horford, he missed like 6, 7 threes. And if he starts hitting some of those, all of a sudden the game's not going to be as close.
And therein lies the same situation of the game tonight. As the team, the Mavs didn't shoot well from 3. They usually do shoot well, at least average. you
Yep.
know, team, player, NBA average. You don't think that it's going to happen in the Eastern Conference Finals, second game, when boys get settled in? It's like the Pacers, I think, are in trouble because that's what the Celtics have done all season. The only hope the Pacers have is if the Celtics fall into, they keep jacking 800 threes and they go into their
But
one-on-one.
but this
You
is what I
turn my
liked
turn.
about Tatum's game is he went to the bar. He remembered I'm 6'10", I'm strong as hell. I'm just gonna put the ball on the floor. And when he plays like that, I'm happy.
But
Whether or not
they
he's making the shots.
resort to that. They keep trying to figure out the math of let's keep jacking these threes and let's keep my turn, you turn, and there's some
Well,
empty possessions.
the math has
Either
them.
way,
The math has them currently with an overall record playoffs and regular season, 70 wins and 30 losses. They now have to win. They now have to go 7-6 over the next 13 games. They have to just go slightly above 500
all right.
to win an NBA championship. And if you like
And
math, those are
there's
pretty good
suspect,
odds.
but because the way they play, jacking threes, your turn, my turn, there's suspect for that. If
Mhm.
if they weren't, hey, if they moved off the ball, agreed to get the better shot versus the good shot, 7-3, they're winning outright
Mhm.
because the West is going to beat each other up. Coming out of this conference final, but they don't agree to play that way. They agree to play to the level. And then everybody that I know, NBA wise, gets frustrated watching the Celtics because, like, these dudes play so nonchalant.
Mhm.
And it's sickening watching them because rather than eat their food outright, they play with their food over the
Yep.
plate
Yep. Especially in close games down the stretch. It's infuriating to watch as a fan of that team.
all season.
Yep.
And
It's
who they are.
but
And unfortunately,
part of me thinks, right, the expectation of this team is to win a championship. And part of me
yep,
just thinks that they're going to start playing properly when they get to the finals. Does that make sense? Like they're just
yeah,
kind of,
yep,
oh well, it's the
I
Pacers,
agree.
we're
I agree
we're
with
gonna
you.
win the series, it's the
Yeah, I
Cavs,
agree
it's
with
the
you.
Heat. We could drop a game, you know what I mean? But then
Yes.
hopefully, I like to think I'm delusional in trying to convince myself that they'll start playing properly when I get to the finals. But Chris, thank you for joining us on today's show. Let the people know where they can find you and check out what you do.
Shoot. I'm only on Instagram half the time. The number one world dominator. Otherwise, hey, you catch me on Instagram, you hit me, and then I'll figure out how I can get you directly.
That's right. If you want to improve your game, Chris is the number one person in the world that I would recommend. So hit him up on Instagram. He'll be tagged in our videos. You can find him through that. And you can do
Hey,
online training because we've got an international audience over here. So he can definitely help you work on your game, learn from the best in the business. And while you're here, make sure you subscribe to the show, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast from.
hey, let me say this. Please subscribe to this show. This show is so real about basketball. If you are a fan of basketball, this show is for you. It's real, and you can do the ESPN Sports Centers and Stephen A. Smith pre-games and TNTs. This is a additional supplement, but it's a supplement that you need. So let me say that, like my man Mo, you real, bro. Like
I
you've proven
appreciate you.
yourself over these years. You do your work, bro. You do your work. You know what you're talking about.
Hey man, listen, that means a lot coming from you. If you guys didn't know, CT has been watching my career from day one because the first ever event that I hosted was when CT and I worked together for Jordan Brand in what was that like 2018? 20 I'm feeling old
Before
now.
COVID. It's definitely
Yeah,
before COVID.
way before.
2016.
Oh wow. Yeah.
I gotta
So,
say in Barcelona.
yep,
So yeah.
yep. So, you know, I appreciate those kind words, man. It really means a lot. And, we do this show every day. This is episode 502. We celebrated 500 episodes recently, and Chris has jumped on a bunch of them, and I'm grateful. And guess what? We got another 500, and then another 500, and another 500, and we ain't never going to stop. So, whatever happens in the world, take your daily supplement, your daily vitamin, your daily dose of the Hoop Genius podcast. I like that. And until next time, you guys, there's only one thing you got to do: get buckets.